In this video, we're exploring LoFi. It's a beginner-friendly box on TryHackMe that's just perfect for learning the basics of local file inclusion, LFI, and path traversal. And if you're starting your journey as a penetration tester, this is a fantastic opportunity to understand how these vulnerabilities work, how to exploit them, and why they're so important to prevent. And by the end of this walkthrough, you'll feel more confident tackling LFI challenges and applying these techniques to real-world scenarios or CDFs. So grab your headphones, relax, and let's get hacking. And if you're new here, I'm Chris Lupalui, a cyber enthusiast who loves CDF challenges, diving into vulnerabilities and researching them, and just all things hacking. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, diving into the machine. So I've already started the machine, but let's take a look at this task one before we actually go to the website. Let's take a look at it and see what this is all about. So want to hear some lo-fi beats to relax to and study to? We got you covered. Access this channel by deploying both the vulnerable machine by pressing the green start machine button located within the task and the TryHackMe attack box by pressing the start attack button located at the top right of the page. Navigate to the following URL using the attack box, and they give us the HTTP with the IP address for this particular lab. And they're asking us to find the flag in the root of the file system. So we do need to remember that we're looking for the flag in the root of the file system. And here are two huge indicators that are going to give us a little bit of information on what this machine is all about. And it's telling us that there are similar content to this machine, the lo-fi machine, and that is the LFI path traversal and the file inclusion. So that is very interesting. And they actually have a note here. The web page does not load some elements from external sources. However, they do not interfere with the completion of the room. Okay, so that's awesome. So let's dive into what is LFI path traversal and what is file inclusion. All right, so starting with file inclusion. So they typically refer to issues that arise when an app allows an attacker to include files into the web app, usually through user input, and that is without any type of validation or security checks. Now, LFI is actually a subset of the file inclusion vulnerabilities, and that's specifically targeting local files on the server. So in other words, in LFI attack is when we, as an attacker, manipulate input parameters to include files that exist on the server that we should not be able to access. So if the app doesn't properly sanitize, that's the first important one, or validate any of our input, then we might be able to access sensitive files or even gain unauthorized access to files that shouldn't be publicly accessible, such as that's the password file. So let's go ahead and dive into the website now. So I'm going to go here in the top left, the target IP address. I'm going to copy this and go into my Kali Linux terminal. And what I like doing is I always like adding the machine or the room name to my Etsy host file. So I'm going to do a sudo nano Etsy host. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want to remember the IP address all the time for all my commands. Or as an example, if I do come back to this machine and I reset it, then I don't want to remember a number of different IP addresses. I just want to remember the name. So lo-fi is pretty easy name. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that IP address. And now I'm going to write in the lofi.thm. And the THM is the same thing as like a .com to a website, but we're using THM for TryHackMe. So that's that. So I'm going to go ahead and Control O, and I'm in Nano right now. And you can kind of see at the bottom of the nano screen, some of the indications on what to do, save, exit, cut, paste, or and so on. So I'm going to Control O to save it, hit enter, and then I'm going to Control X to exit out of nano. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and clear it. Now, we want to make sure if we can actually reach this machine or room. So what we're going to do is we're going to ping the lofi.thm, which is that IP address assigned to the name. We're going to ping it and we're going to see, are we getting a response back? In this case, our ping is coming back with a response. So that's awesome. It looks like it's some server in Europe based on the milliseconds delay, but we now know we have a connection to this machine. So that is awesome. I'm going to go ahead and clear it and then now start doing an nmap scan for the lo-fi. And we're going to run with a 10,000 min rate. So what I'm doing is I'm using nmap. We're targeting all the ports. And here is the IP address that we assigned. It's actually lofi.thm. And the min rate is just the speed of which nmap is going to start doing these requests. So we're going to let that run. And what that essentially is going to do for us is it's going to tell us what open ports are available to us. In this case, it did a pretty quick scan and it comes back with 2 ports, 22 TCP for SSH and an 80 TCP open for HTTP. And that's no surprise to us because it is a web app. So we now know the 80 is to that web app. So if we want to, we can do another scan. In this case, just being specific on the actual ports, the 22 and the 80. And we could do the same thing, but maybe instead of a min rate here, we could do a T5. And that's just another way of doing a quicker scan than the normal way. And I've included here the scripts all together, but typically what I like doing is I'll do it this way. So we'll let that run. And now we can actually go ahead and launch our Burp Suite. And here we go, Burp Suite. Burp Suite is a great tool. Community edition, completely fine. I know some people even like Kaido. That's another great tool that you can kind of use to intercept and take a look at the requests that you want to make for a web app. So we're going to launch that. And now we're going to launch Firefox. In Firefox and Burp Suite are kind of paired together. I'm proxying through everything through Firefox is being sent to Burp Suite if I want it before I actually send it to the web app. All right, so let's take a look at that nmap scan. So it just came back very simply. Here's a little bit more information on SSH. It's on Ubuntu Linux. It's up to date. There's no issues. And we're getting a little bit of information on the website, the lo-fi music, and it's run on Linux. So nothing really special here, but it does give us a little bit more information. All right, so now that we know that, let's go ahead and go to the website. And we'll do we'll do http lofi.thm. And here we go. We have connection to the website. And we're getting some cool beats to listen to, the Lo-Fi Girl. So this is actually one of the channels that I enjoy listening to all the time. But let's take a look at this website. So remember going back at the beginning, we know we're looking for LFI and we're looking for file inclusion. Those are 2 big hints, indicators for something we're doing. So I don't think it's anything to do with the search for, but let's take a look at this here. So we can take a look at the bottom left and let's say we click on relax. Okay, so relax just sends us to a relax playlist, I'm assuming, but the big indication here is in the URL here in the top. It's doing a question mark page and it's referencing relax.php. So PHP, that is a huge indicator. Now we know what this site is built on. It's built on PHP, so that's awesome. Let's go ahead and click the next one. This is sleep.php, and that's awesome. Okay, so it's another lo-fi playlist for sleep and chill. So if we continue clicking this, do you notice something interesting when we click it? There's only one thing that's being updated when we click these. Are you seeing that? The whole page is not updating, but just this box here with the videos are being updated whenever we're making a request for a different page. And you can see here in the top left, right, the chill.php is being requested, and it's just updating this part. So again, that's a huge indication that there may be an LFI vulnerability to this site. So let's go ahead and start testing that now. I'm going to go back into Burp Suite. We're going to go here in the proxy in the top left, and we're going to turn intercept on. And what that means is it's just going to start intercepting through our Firefox proxy, all the different things. So here we're getting a bunch of just Firefox things for Google. I'm going to forward those. But let's go ahead and click on the sleep and see what this request says. So here it pops up with a post request for YouTube, and it's just giving us a bunch of different information. So I'm going to go ahead and forward that because that's nothing really for us to work with. What we're looking for is the host from the lo-fi page. And here we go. We have a request, and it's doing a get request. So it's asking for more information from the web app, and it's requesting here the sleep.php page. So I'm going to go ahead and send that to repeater by right clicking it and sending that to repeater. And I'm just going to go ahead and forward it and see what that does. And this is just Google stuff. We can go ahead and turn intercept off, but let's go into repeater, because this is where we can start testing for our LFI or our file inclusion. So let's send that and see what response we're getting. And we see here we're getting a 200 OK, and we're getting a bunch of different information. And if we want, we can go ahead and render it and see what that looks like as well. But what we care about now is we want to see, okay, it's making a request for sleep.php. Is there any other requests we can do to see if we can access certain files that we shouldn't be able to access? Before we do that, let me go through file inclusions again. So many backend languages like PHP or JavaScript use the HTTP parameters to decide what content appears on the website. And this helps make website pages a lot smaller in size, which in turn, so it's a lot faster, right? Because we're only loading a specific part of the website. We're not loading the entire website. But if not coded securely, we can then change these parameters to show files from the server. And that's creating a local file inclusion vulnerability. That's the LFI that we were talking about. Now, LFI often happens in templating engines, is what I've noticed, because these engines help keep websites consistent by displaying things like the header or the navigation, or even the footer on every page. And while only changing the content in the middle, such as like a blog or any of the news, right? Whenever we click on the different categories, we notice that the videos are only the things that are loaded. So now we know we can control this part, right, through the URL. Let's go ahead and start to force the website to load files that are not included in the navigation bar. And those are typically the sensitive ones that we want to go after. All right, going back into Burp Suite, going into the request here. So it's doing a get request. It's asking the web app, the server, to use the PHP parameter page to request the sleep page. So it's doing that to be dynamic, to be quick. So we're going to change here, instead of the sleep PHP, we want to change it for a sensitive file. In this case, the standard that typically people use for a proof of concept, or if they're trying to test for LFI, is doing an etc password. So we're requesting the etc password file, and the password file in Linux machines, since we know based on our nmap scan that it is run on Ubuntu, it's going to be in the etc directory. So we're asking for the password file in the etc directory. Now let's go ahead and send that and see what happens. We're getting back a 200 OK. That means that it gave us no errors for that request. So that's awesome. Let's go ahead and scroll down, and we're getting back here a response, an alert danger, hacker detected, stop hacking, you stinking hacker. We can go ahead and even render that and take a look at that. So that is awesome, but at the same time, not what we're looking for. So it looks like that was being validated on the back end. It validated it and it didn't give us what we wanted, and it gave us an error response. So let's go ahead and start playing around with this to see if we can get it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a ... and we're going to add in like essentially what we're doing is we're trying to extend the directories out. So we don't know where we are when we're requesting the password file in the Linux machine. So we're trying to get back into the root directory before we actually can look for the password file. And when we're using the ... we're essentially moving up directories in the server's file system. Just think of it as saying go up one level from the current folder we're in. Now, we don't know exactly where the web application is located in the server's directory structure, but by using multiple ... we're essentially telling the server to move up until it reaches the top level directory, the / directory. And once we're at that right level, what we're trying to do is we're trying to access the etc directory, which is a standard location on the Linux systems. And inside the etc directory, we're specifically requesting the password file, which contains the user account information. So while we might not know the exact structure of the server's directories, we're relying on this traversal method to guide the server to the location where we're targeting. And remember, going back at the beginning, the root flag is in the root directory. So let's try that. We're going to send that and see what response. And it's coming back with sorry, it does not exist. So we were able to bypass that validation that the server has on their end by adding that extra step. But let's go in and add another ... So now we have two. And let's try that one and see. And that didn't work out for us either. So we're going to continue going through these directories. So now we have 3 of those, and there we go. We got back the password file. So that is awesome. Here is the information. Now we know what accounts are on that machine, and I'm not seeing any user. Okay, so now we know that the ... these 3 dots puts us kind of in the root directories. So let's try, instead of doing the etc password, we're going to replace the flag.text, and let's see what happens when we do that. And there it is. It came back with the flag. So we can go ahead and copy it. And now I can't really copy it from the render, but I can go into the pretty form and I can scroll down, and here is the flag. So I'm just going to simply copy that, go back here into the TryHackMe lo-fi room and paste that in correctly. And then there we go. We have completed the lo-fi room. That was a fun challenge. There are a ton of other things you can do on this machine aside from actually calling the flag text file or the password file. There are a bunch of other things that I like doing, like the configuration files and maybe the host files, and seeing other things like that on there. But go ahead and play around with this traversal trick and see what information you can gather from it. But that is essentially it for this video. Coming up on the next video is actually going to be another LFI video from Hack the Box that we're going to dive into. And that's going to be a little bit harder than what we just went through. But if you enjoyed this, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in the comment section below.